How about you?
Okay, so the topic is autism, and basically that sign right there is, this is what it is, and it's the sign for oppression. And so if I were to come up here and say I'm Ariel, and probably like none of you guys would really understand me. Maybe a few, right? And so if you were to walk up to someone and ask them a question, like I was at the gas station one time, and I was with a group of friends, and then my friends ran into a couple that had a kid and everything. They had a trailer, and then they were signing to them, and they were like, oh my gosh, she does sign language. And they ran to go get me, and then I was like, oh, what's wrong? Like, and then I was signing to them, and they're like, oh, we need gas money. Do you have any? And I was like, oh no, I have no money, but, and then they're like so grateful that I knew sign language, and then they were like, wow, they were surprised that like someone, I was able to communicate with them, because like when you're deaf, it's like hard to communicate, and they really are really oppressed. Like autism is basically like the word for racism against deaf, which I know, like, I was even talking to a girl that I met in the lab, and she was deaf, and she had never even heard of the word. But I've been in sign language classes for 5 years, so I've been learning about it, and I was telling her about it, and she's like, oh yeah, I've experienced it, but I never knew the term for it. And it's really not even in dictionaries right now. It's like, it is in like very, very few. And so I interviewed one of my professors, who was also a counselor of the deaf at the CSDR, the Riverside School for the Deaf here. And he was like, what we need to do is get it into dictionaries, because like racism, you can file a court, you can go to court and file against it, but if you're deaf and then you go in for an interview and then they don't call you back because you're deaf, that's discrimination, but you can't file it because the word doesn't exist in the court system. And so, I'm going to basically talk to you about, first off, autism has been around since the first person that was born deaf. It's always been around. If they look at a person that can't speak because they can't hear, they can speak, but they just can't hear what they're saying, so it doesn't sound right, so they don't want to speak. And so they have been oppressed because it's like a curse. Ever since, like, even in the Bible, it says that, if you can't hear, then you can't be taught, you can't have faith, you can't, which isn't how it is today, right? Because there's so many different ways, like sign language and stuff. And so one of the main persons that was the first person to oppress them was Alexander Graham Bell. Everyone knows him, the inventor of the telephone. And I personally think that maybe it was because they couldn't use his invention, that he hated them. Or not hated them, but he said that they were like animals. According to Autism Unveiled, he was quoted as saying that they were going to continue being looked at animals if they didn't learn how to speak. So he banned sign language. Anyone seen using signs was banned from that city. They could never go back downtown if they were seen signing down there. They could only use their mouth, and which is hard for them because it takes so much time. And the way that you teach a deaf person to talk is they can't just hear you. They have to go fill your mouth. They have to go fill your throat because they can't hear, and they have to read your lips, and it's really hard and frustrating and discouraging for them. And a lot of them are called oralist failures, and that really sets them back in their life because they're like, if I can't do this, like how am I going to communicate? And 9 out of 10 deaf babies that are born to hearing parents that are uninformed about deaf culture. And the doctors that are uninformed about deaf culture as well, they refer them to oralists, which they force them to speak. And it could benefit a lot of people, but not that much. And it's very slim. It's usually only hard of hearing people that benefit from it. So Alexander Graham Bell is one of the ones that enforced it. And according to a book called A Journey into the Deaf World, the point of professionals such as therapists and teachers are to minimize their disability by the use of hearing aids on the one hand and teaching them to speak on the other hand. And so forcing a child to take speech classes is really hard for the child and discouraging. And let's say a family is all hearing and there's one deaf kid sitting at the table eating, and the family most of the time the family will learn sign language, but there are some times where the family refuses to learn sign language and they make them speak. And so the deaf child will be just sitting at the table reading a book, doing nothing. And it's as if like you don't know their language, and it's like their family speaking Spanish and you don't know any Spanish, and you're just sitting there and you're like an outsider. And that's like that's a sad form of autism, according to the Mask of Benevolence. Sorry. And so according to a poem from a deaf adult, it has never occurred to them that communication is more than a method of talk, that it is a sense of belonging and exchange of understanding, a mutual respect for another's humanity.